What would you do if you accidentally discovered your boss was about to be murdered by his own bride? Run. Stay silent. This woman did something absolutely insane, and it cost her everything she thought she knew about survival. Elena had exactly 5 seconds to make a choice that would either save a life or end hers. Let the most powerful man in the underworld marry the woman plotting his murder, or do something so reckless, so utterly insane, that her hands were already trembling at the thought. The security team was everywhere, weapons hidden but ready. His bride stood radiant in white, her smile perfect and venomous. And Elena, just a server hired for the night, took a breath and stepped directly into the storm. She crossed the room, her heart screaming at her to turn back, and pressed her lips against Dante Moretti, the Mafia boss everyone feared. Before we continue, I need you to do something important. Drop a comment right now and tell me which country you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive, and trust me, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button because what unfolds next will leave you absolutely speechless. The reaction was instant and explosive. The grand hall went silent, then erupted into chaos. Champagne glasses shattered against marble floors. Conversations stopped mid-breath. Men who had killed without hesitation reached instinctively for their concealed weapons, eyes darting, trying to understand what just happened. Dante Moretti stood completely still, his expression unreadable, his dark eyes locked on Elena as she pulled back just enough to whisper against his ear. Her voice shook despite her best efforts to sound calm. Check your jacket pocket. Don't make a scene. Before she could step away, hands grabbed her roughly from behind. Security yanked her backward so hard she nearly lost her footing, her breath catching in her throat. Voices erupted around her, some shouting in Italian, others in English, all furious and confused. The bride's face went from shock to pure rage in seconds. What is this? Get her away from him right now. Do you hear me? Get her out. Elena didn't fight back. Her legs felt weak beneath her pulse thundering in her ears so loudly she could barely hear anything else. She kept her eyes fixed on Dante, searching his face for any sign that she hadn't just destroyed her life for nothing. He looked down at his pocket, his hand moving slowly, deliberately. His fingers brushed against something small and unfamiliar. A recording device. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then his voice cut through the noise like a blade. Stop. The room froze. Everyone turned toward him. Release her. The guards hesitated, their grips still firm on Elena's arms. Sir, she assaulted you in front of everyone. We need to remove her immediately. Dante's gaze shifted to the man who spoke, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. I said let her go. They released her instantly. A ripple of confusion spread through the crowd. The bride stared at Dante, disbelief written across her beautiful face. Dante, what are you doing? She humiliated you. She humiliated us. He didn't even glance her way. Everyone leave. Now. But the wedding, someone protested weakly. Is over, Dante said flatly, his tone leaving no room for argument. When Dante Moretti gave an order, people obeyed. Within minutes, the hall began to empty. Guests whispered urgently as they filed out, glancing back over their shoulders, trying to piece together what they'd just witnessed. Elena stood frozen in place, her uniform wrinkled from rough handling, her breathing still uneven. She had done it. She had warned him. Whether she would survive the next hour was another question entirely. They led her down a hallway she hadn't seen before, away from the main event spaces, away from the guests. The corridor was quiet, sterile, the kind of place where difficult conversations happened behind locked doors. They brought her into a small room with plain walls, a single table, 2 chairs, and lighting that felt intentionally harsh. The door closed behind her with a heavy click. Locked. Elena sat down slowly, pressing her shaking hands together in her lap. Her mind kept replaying the moment she'd overheard the bride's voice in the dressing room earlier that night, the casual cruelty in her tone as she spoke on the phone. It has to happen after the vows. Once everything is legally mine, An accident will be easy to arrange. He trusts me completely. Elena had frozen outside the door, her tray of glasses nearly slipping from her hands. She should have walked away. She should have pretended she heard nothing. But the image of Dante Moretti, unknowing and vulnerable, kept flashing through her mind. She couldn't let it happen. She couldn't stay silent. The door opened. Dante stepped inside alone and locked it behind him. The sound echoed in the small space. Elena stood up immediately, her pulse spiking. "I can explain everything." "Sit down," he said quietly. Something in his voice made her obey without thinking. He didn't sit across from her like an interrogator. Instead, he stood near the table, pulled the small recording device from his pocket, and set it down carefully between them. "I listened to it," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, searching. "All of it." Elena's throat tightened. "Then you know why I did what I did." "I know what you recorded," he corrected. "What I don't understand is why a server would risk her life to warn me." She looked down at her hands. "I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just couldn't live with knowing and doing nothing." He studied her carefully, not like a predator studying prey, but like someone trying to solve a puzzle he hadn't expected. "You planned the recording," he said. "Yes. And the kiss?" She shook her head quickly. "No. I panicked. There was no other way to get close to you without raising suspicion. I thought if I could just get the device into your hands, you'd figure it out." A faint, humorless smile crossed his face. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish." "People have told me both," she said quietly. He leaned against the edge of the table, arms crossed. "Who are you running from?" Her breath caught. "What makes you think I'm running from someone?" "Your hands," he said evenly. "They were shaking before you even touched me. That's not fear of me. You're already carrying it." Elena swallowed hard, her defenses crumbling. "His name is Marcus. And he doesn't believe in letting go." Dante said nothing, letting the silence draw the truth out of her. "He told me he loved me at first," she continued, her voice barely steady. "Then he started deciding everything for me. Who I saw, where I went, what I wore. When I tried to leave, he made sure I understood that wasn't an option." "The police?" Dante asked. She laughed bitterly. "They said I should get a restraining order. As if a piece of paper would stop him." "That's why you took this job," Dante said. "To disappear. To survive." "Yes. And after tonight?" She met his eyes. "I didn't think past tonight." Dante straightened, his expression unreadable. "You saved my life tonight." The words hung heavy in the air between them. "Which means," he continued, "you are now under my protection." Elena's breath caught. "I didn't ask for that." "You don't need to," he said. "No one who saves me walks away unprotected." She nodded slowly, exhaustion beginning to settle into her bones. "What happens now?" His gaze softened just slightly. "Now, everything changes. Your support keeps these stories alive, and trust me, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button because what unfolds next will leave you absolutely speechless." Dante didn't leave right away. After saying those words, he remained standing, watching Elena as if memorizing every detail of her face. Not the way the guests at the wedding had looked at her earlier, dismissive and uninterested, but with focus, intent, curiosity. Elena shifted under his gaze. "You're staring." "I'm deciding," he said simply. Her throat tightened. "Deciding what?" "Whether you're reckless," he said calmly, "or extraordinary." She let out a shaky breath. "I don't feel extraordinary." "No one ever does," he replied. Then he moved toward the door and unlocked it. "Come with me." Her pulse spiked again. "Where?" "Somewhere safer than this room." Two guards appeared in the hallway immediately, straightening when Dante stepped out. "Take her with us," he ordered. "No restraints." Elena blinked. That alone told her everything had shifted. They led her through corridors she hadn't seen before, private elevators, quiet hallways far from the chaos of the ruined wedding. She could still hear muffled voices behind closed doors, the bride's voice rising once, shrill and furious, before being cut off. Elena flinched at the sound. Dante noticed. "She won't touch you," he said without looking back. "Not anymore." That should have been comforting. Instead, it raised a different question. "What about later?" she asked softly. He stopped walking and turned to face her. The guards paused at a respectful distance. "There is no later where anyone harms you." The certainty in his tone made her chest ache unexpectedly. They reached an underground garage where a black car sat waiting, engine already running. Dante opened the back door himself and gestured for her to get in. Elena hesitated. "I'm not a prisoner." "No," he said simply. "You're not." She slid into the seat. As soon as the door closed, the tension she'd been holding finally cracked. Her hands started shaking violently. She pressed them together, trying to hide it, but it was impossible. Dante watched her from the seat across from her. "You're safe now," he said quietly. "Breathe." She tried. Failed. Tried again. "I really didn't think I'd survive tonight," she admitted. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You did," he said, "because you acted instead of freezing." The car pulled smoothly away from the venue, leaving the wedding and her old life behind. They rode in silence for several minutes, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows. Elena's breathing eventually steadied, though her heart still pounded uncomfortably. "Why didn't you ask more questions?" she finally said. "I already asked the important ones," Dante replied. "And you trust my answers?" "I trust the recording," he said. "And I trust my instincts." She glanced at him. "And what are your instincts telling you now? That you didn't do this for money or leverage?" She scoffed softly. "If I wanted money, I wouldn't have kissed a mafia boss in front of a room full of armed criminals." A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Exactly." The car slowed, turning into a gated property she didn't recognize. High walls, security cameras, guards stationed at intervals. The kind of place no one entered by accident. "This isn't a police station," she murmured. "No," he said. "It's one of my residences." Her nerves flared again. "Why bring me here?" "Because if what you told me about Marcus is true," he said evenly, "wherever you were staying is no longer safe." Her silence confirmed it. They were escorted inside. The house was quiet, minimalist, intimidating in its stillness. Elena suddenly felt very small in her server's uniform, stained with wine and fear. Dante handed her a glass of water. She drank it quickly, grateful. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a couch this time, not an interrogation chair. That alone felt significant. He sat across from her, leaning forward slightly. "Tell me everything," he said. "From the beginning." She hesitated only briefly before speaking. She told him about Marcus. How charming he'd been at first, how the charm slowly morphed into control. How he monitored her phone, isolated her from friends, dictated her schedule. How the first time he hit her, he cried afterward and promised it would never happen again. How many times did it happen again? Dante asked quietly. She looked down. "Enough that I stopped counting." She told him how she left. How Marcus followed. How he appeared outside her jobs, her apartment. How he once waited in the dark just to remind her he could. "How did you survive?" Dante asked. "I learned to be invisible," she said. "I worked places where no one asked questions. I moved constantly. I learned how to disappear in a crowded room." "And tonight?" he asked. She met his eyes. "Tonight I couldn't disappear anymore." Dante exhaled slowly. "That man will never touch you again," he said. She wanted desperately to believe him. "What about your bride?" she asked. "She's not the type to forgive and forget." "No," he agreed. "She's the type who thinks she's smarter than everyone else." Elena hesitated. "And is she?" He looked at her then, really looked. She was, he said quietly, until tonight. Her heart skipped. You're not angry at me, she said. I should be, he replied honestly. You caused chaos. You humiliated me publicly. You forced my hand. She nodded. I know. But, he continued, you also saved my life. Something unspoken passed between them then. Not romance, not yet. Understanding. You could have walked away, he said. Most people would have. But then I'd be just like everyone else, Elena said. Watching someone die and doing nothing. Dante straightened. That answer seemed to settle something inside him. I'll have clothes brought for you, he said, standing. You'll stay here tonight. And after that? She asked. He paused at the doorway. After that, he said, we decide what comes next. The door closed softly behind him. Elena leaned back against the couch, heart racing. She had walked into that wedding as nobody. She had walked out under the protection of the most dangerous man in the city. And she had no idea what that would cost her. Your support keeps these stories alive, and trust me, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button because what unfolds next will leave you absolutely speechless. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay on top of the bed in the guest room, fully dressed in borrowed clothes that smelled faintly of lavender and something expensive she couldn't name. The sheets remained untouched beneath her. Every sound in the house made her body tense. The quiet hum of the ventilation system. Distant footsteps. A door closing somewhere far away. Safety felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. Somewhere near dawn, there was a soft knock. She sat up immediately. Yes. The door opened slowly. Dante stepped inside. No suit this time, just a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. The tattoos on his forearms were visible now, intricate lines disappearing beneath fabric. He looked human. Tired. You're awake, he said. I don't sleep well when everything changes this fast, she replied. He nodded as if that made perfect sense. I had my people look into Marcus, he said. You weren't exaggerating. Her stomach dropped. You found him? Yes. Is he? She stopped herself. No, don't tell me. He studied her carefully. Why not? Because if I know you hurt him because of me, she said quietly, I won't know how to feel about it. Something in his expression shifted. I haven't touched him, he said. Yet. She exhaled slowly, relief and dread tangling together. Then why are you here? Because my bride is no longer my bride, he said flatly. And because my enemies will test me now. Her chest tightened. Because of me. Because of betrayal, he corrected. You only exposed it. He leaned against the doorframe. You should leave the city. She blinked. What? Tonight, he continued. I'll arrange everything. New documents, new identity, somewhere safe where Marcus will never find you. The offer was everything she'd once prayed for. And yet, no, she said. He frowned slightly. Explain. If I run now, she said, forcing her voice steady, Marcus wins. He'll know I was scared. And your bride will still be out there, still dangerous. Dante's eyes sharpened. You think staying near me is safer? I think hiding hasn't worked for me so far, Elena replied. And I think the only reason I'm still alive is because I stopped hiding. Silence stretched between them. Finally, he said, you don't understand what staying near me means. I understand enough, she said. It means danger, but at least it's honest danger. He let out a short breath, almost a laugh. You're not like other people, he said. No, she agreed. I'm tired of running. He straightened. Then listen carefully. She did. My world doesn't forgive weakness, he said. If you stay, people will assume you matter to me. Her heart skipped. Do I? His gaze held hers. That's what we're about to find out. Later that day, Dante summoned his inner circle. Elena wasn't invited. That alone told her how serious things were. She paced the living room, fingers worrying at the hem of her borrowed sweater. Her phone was gone, confiscated for security purposes. She felt exposed without it, stripped of her last connection to the outside world. Hours passed. When Dante finally returned, his jaw was tight, his movements precise and controlled. "It's worse than I thought," he said. She looked up. "Your bride." "She wasn't working alone," he replied. "She promised pieces of my territory to people who already wanted me gone." Elena's blood ran cold. "And now they know you know," she whispered. "Which means they'll look for leverage," he said. Her throat tightened. "Me?" "Yes." The word landed like a physical blow. Dante stepped closer. "Which is why we need to change how the world sees you." She searched his face. "How?" He hesitated. That alone frightened her more than any threat. "There's one option," he said slowly. "It will protect you completely." "And the cost?" she asked. He met her eyes. "It binds you to me." The words hung heavy between them. "Marriage," she whispered. "Yes." She laughed once, breathless and disbelieving. "You can't be serious." "I don't joke about survival," he said. She shook her head. "I can't marry you." "I didn't say I wouldn't." "I'm not asking for love," he said calmly. "I'm offering protection." "That's worse," she said. "You don't marry someone just for safety." "In my world," he said, "you do." She paced away from him, heart pounding. "This morning you offered me a way out. Now you want me tied to you permanently?" "Not permanently," he corrected. "Contractual. Time limited." She turned sharply. "And after?" "After," he said, "you walk away. Untouched, protected, free." She stared at him. "And you?" "That's irrelevant." Something about that answer hurt more than it should have. "Why me?" she asked softly. Dante didn't answer immediately. "Because you were brave," he said finally. "Because you told the truth when it could have killed you. And because if I put someone beside me now, it has to be someone I know won't betray me." Her chest tightened. "You don't know me." "I know enough," he said. "You didn't ask for money. You didn't beg for mercy. You didn't run when you had the chance." She swallowed hard. "And if I say no?" He didn't threaten her. He simply said, "Then I'll still protect you. But not like this, and not as effectively." The honesty in that was terrifying. She sank onto the couch, head in her hands. Marriage. To a man who could end lives with a word. To a man whose enemies would gladly kill her just to hurt him. And yet she looked up at him. "If I do this, you don't touch me unless I say so." His answer was immediate. "Agreed." "No ownership," she added. "No control over my life." "Agreed." "And when it ends," she said, voice shaking, "you let me go without a fight." He nodded once. "On my word." She studied his face, searching for deception. She found none. "Why do I feel like this will change everything?" she whispered. "Because it will," Dante said quietly. The room fell silent. Elena took a deep breath. "Then we do it," she said. Something dark and protective flashed through his eyes. "Then you're mine to protect," he replied. And for the first time since the wedding, Elena wasn't sure whether she should feel safe or terrified. The news spread faster than Elena expected. By the next morning, whispers were crawling through Dante's world. Not announced openly, not shouted, just enough murmuring for the right people to hear. "She's staying. She matters to him. He chose her over everything." Elena felt it in the way the guards looked at her now. Not with curiosity or dismissal, but with alertness, respect, as if she'd crossed an invisible threshold overnight. She hated how quickly her life had changed. She hated even more that part of her didn't hate it at all. Dante insisted she move into the main bedroom suite. Not to share it, but because it was the most secure part of the house. She argued. She lost. "This isn't about comfort," he told her firmly. "It's about keeping you alive." So she accepted it. They began preparing the contract quietly. No lawyers she recognized, no lengthy explanations, just terms laid out clearly. Protection, public acknowledgement, no intimacy without consent, freedom when it ended. It felt surreal signing her name beside his. "You don't have to do this," he said one last time before the documents were finalized. She met his eyes. "Neither do you." A muscle in his jaw flexed. "I choose to." That word, choose, followed her long after he left the room. The engagement ring his former bride had worn was gone, replaced by something simpler, deliberately understated. When Dante placed it in Elena's palm, his fingers brushed hers briefly. The contact sent a jolt through her that had nothing to do with fear. "This isn't a promise," he said quietly. "It's armor." She closed her fingers around the ring. "I've never had armor before. You do now." The first public appearance came sooner than she expected. A private dinner, limited guests, high-ranking allies who needed reassurance that Dante hadn't lost control. Elena stood beside him, dressed elegantly but modestly, heart pounding as eyes assessed her from every angle. She felt exposed under their scrutiny. Dante leaned closer, his voice low. "Breathe. They're watching me, not you." "That's not true," she murmured. His hand rested lightly at the small of her back. Not possessive, grounding. "It is now," he said. The effect was immediate. The room shifted. People smiled at her, spoke carefully, chose their words with precision. She realized then what being his wife, even in name only, meant. Power by proximity. Later that night, when they returned home, the tension finally broke. Elena kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion washing over her in waves. "I don't know how you do this every day," she said. Dante loosened his tie. "You learn not to feel it," he said. She looked at him. "That sounds incredibly lonely." Something flickered across his face. "It is." The admission surprised them both. Silence stretched between them. "I didn't expect you to look at me the way you did tonight," she said carefully. "How did I look at you? Like you were proud of me." His gaze held hers. "I was." Her heart stuttered. They stood there, something fragile and electric hovering in the space between them. Then his phone rang. The moment shattered. His expression hardened as he listened. "Where?" he asked sharply. He ended the call and turned to her. Marcus made contact. Her blood ran cold. "With you?" "No," he said. "With someone who knows you." Her hands clenched into fists. "What does he want?" "Leverage," Dante said evenly. "And attention." "What does that mean?" "It means," he said calmly, "he's trying to remind you he still exists." Elena's chest tightened. "I can handle him myself." Dante stepped closer. "No. You don't handle him." "I do." The firmness in his voice left no room for argument. She nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, "we end the illusion that you're untouchable." Fear flickered through her. "And after that?" "After," he said, eyes darkening, "we make this real." She swallowed. "You're talking about marriage like it's a weapon." "In my world," he replied, "it is. Your support keeps these stories alive, and trust me, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button because what unfolds next will leave you absolutely speechless." That night, Elena couldn't sleep again. She lay awake listening to the quiet house, acutely aware of Dante's presence down the hall. The knowledge that he was near unsettled her in ways she wasn't ready to name. She thought of Marcus, of the bride's vicious laugh, of the ring on her finger. She also thought of Dante's hand at her back, the way his voice softened only when he spoke to her. Sometime past midnight, there was a soft knock. She sat up. "Yes." Dante stood in the doorway. "I won't stay long," he said. "I just wanted you to hear this from me." She nodded, waiting. "You're safe tonight," he said. "And tomorrow, and every day after, as long as you're with me." Her chest tightened. "And if I decide to leave someday?" His gaze softened just a fraction. Then I'll make sure you leave alive and protected. She studied him. You don't sound afraid of losing me. I am, he said quietly. I just don't let fear make my decisions. Something in her shifted then. Dante, she said. He paused. Thank you, she said, for choosing me. His eyes held hers for a long moment. You chose first, he said. I'm just honoring that choice. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Elena lay back, heart racing, realizing something she hadn't expected. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning to care. And that scared her more than any threat ever had. The first crack in the contract appeared quietly. It wasn't a touch. It wasn't a kiss. It was a look. Elena noticed it 3 days later during another meeting she hadn't been meant to attend. Dante's advisors filled the room, voices low and tense, layered with power plays and unspoken threats. She stayed seated beside him, hands folded neatly in her lap, playing the role expected of her. Invisible, decorative, safe. Until one of the men laughed. Your new wife, he said casually, eyes sliding over Elena with thinly veiled judgment. She's quite unexpected. The word carried weight, criticism disguised as observation. Elena felt Dante's body shift beside her. Careful, Dante said softly. The room went completely still. I didn't mean any offense, the man added quickly, his tone shifting. Dante's hand moved then. Not to threaten, not to display dominance, but to rest lightly over Elena's folded fingers. The gesture was small, intimate, unmistakably possessive. Elena's breath caught. She's not unexpected, Dante continued quietly. She's exactly who I chose. The message was crystal clear. The meeting ended shortly after. Back in the car, Elena finally spoke. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, he replied. You touched me, she said. Not accusing, just stating fact. He glanced at her. Did you want me to stop? Her heart pounded. No. The word hung between them, heavier than any contract clause. That night, the house felt different. Not dangerous, but charged with something neither of them wanted to name. They passed each other in hallways more often, spoke longer over meals, shared conversations that drifted from polite to deeply personal without either of them acknowledging the shift. Dante learned she drank her coffee black, hated imposed silence, and slept with the lights on when memories pressed too hard against her mind. Elena learned he counted steps when anxious, removed his watch before difficult conversations, and never spoke about his childhood unless asked directly. One evening, after a particularly tense call with his associates, he sat beside her on the couch instead of across the room. She stiffened instinctively. He noticed and pulled back slightly. I won't cross any lines, he said. I know, she replied. I just need a moment to adjust. He nodded and waited. After a few seconds, she leaned back into the cushions. You can stay. He did. Their shoulders brushed. Nothing more. It was somehow more intimate than a kiss. Then Marcus shattered the quiet. Not directly. Cowardly but efficient. Elena found the message waiting on a burner phone Dante had given her for emergencies. You think hiding behind him makes you safe? Her hands shook as she read the next line. You still belong to me. Dante saw the change in her face instantly. What did he say? She handed him the phone without speaking. Dante's expression darkened, not with rage, but with cold, calculated intent. His testing boundaries, he said evenly, seeing how far he can push before I respond. And if he doesn't stop? She asked. He will, Dante said. That night, Dante didn't sleep. Elena knew because she didn't either. At some point, she left her room and found him standing by the window, city lights reflecting off the glass, tattoos visible beneath rolled sleeves. You should rest, she said quietly. He didn't turn. I will. Later. She stepped closer. Is it always like this? Waiting for the next threat? For people like me, he said, yes. For people like me, she said, This is all new. He turned then, looking at her carefully. You can still walk away from all of this. She shook her head. I don't want to. The honesty surprised them both. Silence settled between them, thick and fragile. You know, she said softly, you never asked what I want after all this ends. He frowned slightly. What do you want? She looked up at him. Peace. His expression softened. So do I. The next morning, everything escalated. One of Dante's men was attacked. Not killed, just warned. A message carved where only insiders would understand its meaning. Marcus's signature. He's getting closer, Elena whispered. When Dante told her. Yes, he agreed. Which means this ends soon. How? Dante stepped closer, lowering his voice. By removing the illusion that you're only protected by a contract. Her heart raced. What does that mean? It means, he said, eyes locking onto hers, we stop pretending. She swallowed hard. Pretending what? That this marriage is just strategy. The air between them shifted, becoming heavier. Dante, she began. He raised a hand gently, not to silence her, but to steady himself. I won't touch you, he said. Not until you tell me to. Her voice was barely audible. And if I never do? Then I'll still protect you, he said. But I won't lie about what I feel anymore. Her breath caught. What do you feel? He hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Before either of them could say more, his phone rang again. Another interruption. Another reminder of the world they lived in. Dante looked at the screen, then at her. Stay close to me from now on, he said. I already am, she replied. And this time, neither of them pretended the words meant nothing. They stopped pretending the next day. Not with words, but with actions, with instinct. Dante didn't let Elena out of his sight. Meetings, car rides, meals. She was always within reach. Not hidden behind him like something fragile, but beside him like an equal, protected but present. And everyone noticed. The shift unsettled his people more than any display of force ever had. She's not just protection anymore, one of his men muttered under his breath after a meeting. She's becoming a weakness, another whispered. Dante heard them all. He didn't care. What he cared about was the way Elena flinched when footsteps echoed too loudly behind her. The way her smile faded whenever a phone buzzed unexpectedly. The way she tried to appear brave when fear still lived just beneath her skin. That night, the house was too quiet. Elena stood in the kitchen staring at nothing when Dante entered. He paused when he saw her hands trembling slightly. Did he contact you again? He asked. She nodded. Not directly. He waited, patient. He sent flowers, she said softly. To a place I worked months ago. With my name on the card. Rage flickered across Dante's face, raw and dangerous. He's reminding you he can reach anywhere, he said quietly. Yes. Dante closed the distance between them in 2 strides. He stopped just short of touching her. You're not alone anymore, he said. Say it. She swallowed. I'm not alone anymore. His voice dropped lower. Say it again. I'm not alone anymore. Her voice cracked this time. That was the moment something inside him broke. Dante reached out and pulled her into his chest. Not roughly, not urgently, but protectively, as if she might shatter. Elena froze for half a second, then melted against him, her hands fisting into his shirt, her face pressed against his chest, breath shuddering. He wrapped one arm around her back, the other resting lightly against her hair, careful not to cage her in. He didn't kiss her. He just held her. I've got you, he murmured against her hair. I won't let him take anything else from you. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. I don't know how to stop being scared. You don't have to stop, he said. I'll carry it for you. She laughed weakly through her tears. That doesn't sound very reassuring. It should, he said. I'm extremely dangerous when I'm protecting something I care about. That earned a real laugh, soft and genuine. When she pulled back, their faces were inches apart. Too close. Her eyes flicked to his lips, then back up. Dante noticed. His breath slowed. "If I kiss you," he said carefully, "there's no pretending after that." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Then don't pretend." He hesitated. That hesitation was pure restraint, and it shattered something inside her. Elena reached up and kissed him first. Soft, tentative, nothing like the desperate kiss that started everything at the wedding. This one was slow, careful, achingly real. Dante's hands tightened at her waist, not claiming her, but grounding them both. He deepened the kiss only when she leaned in further, only when she sighed against him like she'd been waiting for this moment. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing harder. That, she whispered, wasn't part of the strategy. "No," he agreed. "That was reckless." She smiled despite everything. "Seems appropriate for us." His forehead rested against hers. "This makes you an even bigger target." "I already was," she said. "At least now I know why." He exhaled slowly. "You should hate me for complicating your life like this." She shook her head. "I don't hate you at all." That was when the call came. Dante's phone buzzed violently against the counter. He checked it once and went completely still. "What?" Elena asked, fear creeping back in. "Marcus," he said flatly. "He made his move." Her stomach dropped. "Where?" "Not here," Dante replied, his voice going cold. "Worse." He turned the phone so she could see the photo. Her breath left her lungs entirely. It was her younger sister. Tied up, bruised, alive but terrified. A message beneath the image. "Come alone or she dies." Elena swayed. "Your support keeps these stories alive, and trust me, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button because what unfolds next will leave you absolutely speechless." Dante caught her instantly, holding her steady. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no, please no." "He wants me emotional," Dante said, his voice turning ice cold. "Wants me sloppy and desperate." "I'll go," Elena said frantically. "I'll talk to him. I'll give him whatever he wants." Dante's grip tightened on her arms. "You won't." "She's my sister," Elena cried. "And you're my responsibility," he said sharply, then immediately softened. "I won't lose you. I won't lose her either." "You can't control this," Elena said, tears streaming down her face. "I can," he said with terrifying certainty. "And I will." He turned sharply, already making calls, barking orders. The house erupted into coordinated movement. Elena grabbed his arm desperately. "Promise me you won't kill him just because you're angry." He looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his expression made her breath catch. "I promise," he said quietly. "I won't kill him because I'm angry. I'll kill him because he deserves it." Fear and trust collided violently inside her chest. "You're going to war," she whispered. "Yes," he said simply. "And this time it ends permanently." He cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing away tears with surprising tenderness. "Stay here. Locked down. Guarded. Promise me." She nodded shakily, unable to speak. As he turned to leave, she grabbed his hand tightly. "Dante." He stopped, looking back. "Come back to me," she said. "Please." He leaned down and pressed a kiss to her forehead, lingering there for just a moment. "I always do," he said. But for the first time since she'd met him, Elena wasn't sure if that was a promise or just hope. Dante didn't go alone. He let Marcus believe he would. That was the difference between rage and strategy. The location Marcus sent was an abandoned warehouse near the docks, rusted metal, broken windows, the kind of place where people disappeared without anyone asking questions. Dante arrived first, stepping out of the car with nothing visible but his phone and the dangerous calm that came before violence. Marcus emerged from the shadows, smiling that familiar smile that had once charmed Elena. "You came," Marcus said, looking pleased with himself. Alone, just like I asked. You really do care about her. Dante's eyes were empty of emotion. Where is the girl? Marcus chuckled darkly. Straight to business. No threats. No begging. You misunderstand the situation, Dante replied evenly. This is the last conversation you'll ever have. Marcus's smile flickered. Big words from a man who followed my rules. Dante held up his phone calmly. You think you made the rules? That was the signal. Lights snapped on from every direction. Armed men poured out of the shadows, surrounding Marcus completely, silent and efficient. Marcus spun around, panic finally breaking through his arrogance. You lied, he said, voice cracking. I adapted, Dante said. There's a difference. Marcus reached for his weapon. Gunfire erupted, controlled and precise. It was over before Marcus fully understood he'd already lost. Marcus fell to his knees, bleeding, breath ragged, eyes wild with disbelief and fear. You don't get to hurt her anymore, Dante said calmly, stepping closer. You don't even get to think her name. Marcus laughed weakly, blood on his teeth. She chose you. You think she'll survive in your world? She already has, Dante said. The final shot was quiet, almost merciful. When Dante returned home hours later, the house was silent. Elena was waiting in the living room, knees drawn to her chest, eyes red but alert, desperate. She stood the moment she saw him. Is my sister, she couldn't finish. She's safe, he said immediately, crossing to her. She's already on a plane to somewhere new. New identity, completely protected. Elena's knees gave out. Dante caught her before she hit the floor, lowering them both down gently. She sobbed into his chest, grief and relief colliding with overwhelming force. He held her without speaking, absorbing everything she couldn't carry alone. After a long time, she pulled back enough to look at his face. You killed him, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, he answered honestly, holding her gaze. She studied his face carefully, searching. Do you regret it? No, he said. But I regret that you needed me to do it. Tears slid down her cheeks again. I didn't want this blood on your hands because of me. It was already there long before you, he said gently. You didn't put it there. She nodded slowly, processing. Then this ends now, she said quietly. Dante stiffened. What ends? This life, she said. For me, for us. I won't be the reason you keep killing. He looked at her for a long moment, something vulnerable crossing his features. Then he surprised her completely. I was already planning to leave it all behind, he said. Her breath caught. You were. I've been lying to you, he admitted. There are things you don't dismantle overnight. But I've been working on it. She searched his eyes. And the contract between us? He reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded papers. He tore them in half. Once, twice, letting the pieces fall. I don't need a contract anymore, he said quietly. I need a real choice. Her heart pounded. Whose choice? Yours, he said. Silence wrapped around them, heavy with possibility. I love you, Elena said suddenly. The words surprised even her, but they were absolutely true. Dante closed his eyes briefly, like the confession hit somewhere deep and vulnerable he'd kept protected. I've loved you since the moment you chose my life over your own safety, he admitted, voice rough with emotion. I just didn't think I deserved to say it out loud. She stepped closer. Do you still think that? No, he said, eyes opening to meet hers. Because you're still here. They kissed then. Not desperate, not careful, but certain. Absolute. The world outside could burn. They'd already survived worse together. The city didn't stop just because their war ended. Life still breathed outside the windows. Cars humming, lights glowing, people chasing ordinary lives that felt impossibly distant from what Elena and Dante had survived together. For the first time since the wedding, there were no alarms, no whispered threats, no phones vibrating with terrible news. Just quiet, peaceful silence. Elena stood by the balcony doors wrapped in one of Dante's jackets, watching the city she'd once tried to disappear in. When Dante joined her, he didn't speak right away. He simply stood beside her, close enough that their arms brushed comfortably. "I used to think silence meant danger was coming," she said softly. "Now it feels like permission to finally breathe." He nodded, understanding completely. "I used to think peace was weakness." She looked at him. "What do you think now?" "That I was wrong about a lot of things," he said. She smiled faintly. "Me too." They didn't rush anything after that. No grand announcements, no forced celebrations. Dante quietly dismantled the last alliances that kept him tied to bloodshed. Assets were sold, power redistributed carefully, dangerous names erased from his life. People noticed. Some didn't approve. But no one dared challenge him. Elena watched the transformation with careful eyes, afraid to hope too much, afraid that one wrong move would drag them back into darkness. One evening, weeks later, Dante came home earlier than usual. He found her in the kitchen, barefoot, humming softly as she cooked something simple. The sight stopped him completely. He realized then that this simple domestic moment, was the life he'd been fighting for without even knowing it. "I'm done," he said quietly. She turned from the stove, wooden spoon in hand. "With dinner?" she asked, smiling. He smiled back. "With the Empire." Her breath caught. "You're absolutely sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," he said, crossing to her. "I want a future that doesn't require you to look over your shoulder constantly." She walked to him slowly, setting down the spoon. "And what if I still do sometimes?" "Force of habit." "Then I'll still be right there," he replied. "Just not with a gun anymore." She laughed quietly, genuinely, pressing her forehead to his chest. "I didn't plan to fall in love with you, you know." "Neither did I," he said, wrapping his arms around her. "You completely ruined all my plans. And you're not angry about that?" "No," he said softly. "I'm grateful beyond words." Months later, there was a wedding. Not extravagant, not secretive, just honest and real. No contracts, no strategic deals, only genuine choice and love. When Elena walked toward him, Dante didn't see the terrified woman who once trembled in fear or the overlooked server everyone dismissed. He saw the woman who saved his life when it would have been easier and safer to walk away. The woman who chose courage over silence. The woman he chose to build a new life with, every single day. Later that night, as they stood alone beneath soft lights, Elena rested her head on his shoulder, content and safe. "Do you ever think about that night at the wedding?" she asked. "The kiss?" "All the time," he admitted. "It cost me everything I thought I wanted." She smiled against his shoulder. "And gave you something infinitely better." He kissed her hair gently. "It gave me you." And for the first time in his entire life, that was more than enough. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting or running away. Sometimes it's speaking up when silence would be so much safer. Sometimes it's choosing love when fear screams at you not to. Because the right choice doesn't always arrive gently wrapped in certainty. Sometimes it arrives with shaking hands, a reckless kiss, and the courage to change absolutely everything. So let me ask you something important. If you were Elena, would you have stayed silent and safe, or would you have risked everything to save him? Drop your honest answer in the comments below. I read every single one and your thoughts mean the world to me. And if this story touched your heart, moved you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who loves powerful romance and unexpected twists. Because more incredible, heart-stopping stories like this are coming your way very soon. Thank you so much for watching, for being part of this community. See you in the next one, family.